Hi, WFMers out there. I'm your host, Irina, and this is WFM Unfiltered, a podcast by Right WFM, the place where we share the truth about workforce management. So get comfortable and listen closely. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of WFM Unfiltered. I'm your host, Irina, and it's the official first threesome here on the podcast. And we're going all the way to, I'm hoping that I'm not going to mess it up, Fort Lauderdale and Minnesota.
You got it right. Yep.
I mean, and the topic is an interesting one, and I'm having guests that are from both sides of the coin. But before we kick off with the topic, I would like you guys to introduce yourselves. So, Jeremy, how about you say some words about you?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Jeremy Hyde. I'm the Senior Director of Customer Service at Sun Country Airlines. When Junior and I were talking about this episode, I said, I'm not a WFM professional. I like to think of myself as, a little bit WFM informed, but I've never worked as a WFM professional. And so, I bring a certain perspectives to the table, but I thought it would be useful for Junior to bring his perspective as well.
Thank you. Here, how about you?
So I'm Junior Mesa. I joined Sun Country back in September. I'm the WFM manager. I've been around WFM for a while. I go back to 2007, 8. So I've been around a few organizations, different experience. So this should be an interesting conversation.
Absolutely. It's one that's a very important one. And thank you both for introducing yourselves. And, we had exactly maybe 90 seconds chat before we kicked off the recording. And I shared that the conversation is entirely unscripted. So you're not prepared what's coming to your end. But I actually wanted to have a chat about senior leadership and what the heck do you guys want from us? That I'm happy to have Junior here who will be joining side, and I'm going to be siding with you against Jeremy. So I'm going to kick off with the question to Jeremy. Why the heck do you care about WFM? And as far as I'm aware, your role doesn't require you to specialize in WFM topics. So I'm curious to understand, why do you even try? Why are you getting that knowledge? You're not supposed to be specialist, Jeremy.
Right. Early in my contact center career, I found myself going and talking to specialists of different types within our contact center team. And so it was the training folks and the quality folks, but it was also the WFM folks as well. I found it interesting. And I think I also wanted to understand, I saw that there was a lot of, within this particular organization, there was a lot of guidance, information, kind of impact that came from the WFM team. I started as an agent, and then I was a team lead, and then I was a supervisor. And so kind of through these roles, I saw the WFM team impacts the broader team, whether it's my schedule or my time off or how we're performing that day. I saw the impact. And so I was curious and I started kind of getting, going into the WFM room and asking questions and asking them to show me things. And I think I was maybe a bit more fortunate than what some others may be in their careers to kind of have that opportunity. When I first stepped into a manager role, it was with a really small company and I was responsible for everything. I didn't have any specialists. And so anything scheduling related, forecasting related, the team was looking to me. And so I was calling up my previous WFM guy that I was really tight with and going, hey, this is how I'm thinking about this. Is this how you would do it? What am I missing? And he'd say, yep, you're generally on the right track. Do this, try that. And so I think that there's just some uniqueness in terms of kind of how I came up through contact center that early on cemented the importance of these topics. Now, kind of, if we flash forward to today, the success of this team, the success of our team, the success of our customers, in large part, in my opinion, is built on having the right process built around the workforce process and kind of this function. So if I want our day and week and month and year to be successful, I need to know what I think is going to happen and how many people we need to do, we need to have the work and when we need to have them and what are the trends that are changing within the day-to-day operation and where can we make some tweaks to improve. And so I find myself dabbling in this area maybe a bit more than others. And luckily I've got somebody like Yunier that actually knows what they're doing so they can keep me on the right track. But like I said, I mean, ultimately our success in large part is built on this function and making sure that we can be planning and executing on that plan.
It's interesting that you're describing it in a way that you were fortunate, because for me, it's not about being fortunate, it's about being curious. And I'm actually so interested in hearing, Junior, with your background, because I have worked with a lot of operations directors and contact center managers and senior stakeholders, and not many of them are interested in understanding WFM. They kind of know it's important, but they're also kind of ignoring what we're telling them. So I'm kind of curious about your co-op guys. How is that even happening? Is Jeremy annoying?
Well, serious nuts. Jeremy
100%.
Jeremy gives himself little credit to what he knows. He knows a lot about them. He knows a lot of the concepts, right? Which says sometimes it's hard to grasp with the operations. How does it actually work? Well, you don't hear a lot of people talking about Erlang, right? That doesn't come out of any meetings in operations. Like no one's interested in the actual calculation. Well, he is interested. So when I was an agent, it was either team lead or I found it was called service level coordinator, just watching RTA doing their real, the real time updates. So the opportunity opened in the WFM team, and when I joined, I had spent one-on-ones previously when I was as an agent with them. Just sit there and watch what they do. The curiosity part was always there because I was interested, right? How does this actually work? Right? You got this group here overseeing the floor, and they seem to be saying no all the time. So what is it about them that make me want to hate so much?
There we go. Let's start.
When I joined them, I learned pretty fast why do we say no? Because that's what I was missing, the why. Right? When you're presented with, here's this big screen and this is what's happening right now, all the people calling, how many agents we have and all district KPIs, and then we post them there on that board too, so that people can walk by and see where we are and look at all the codes that we have around the floor, so that they can inform the agents what state we're in, so that they prepare themselves. Here's your 7 minutes to prepare, but once you hit out in, it's back to that. Observing all of that, and then I took, okay, this is the real time, right? This is what's happening now. And then I looked back, and it was a guy sitting in the back. Like, what does he do? Well, he's the planner. He's the guy that plans this. So he's responsible for the future. And I always loved that phrase. We own the future. So it's like, okay. So I spent time there too. So it was a great experience. So when I finally, well, not finally, but when I left T-Mobile after a few years, I found myself doing it all by myself. The planning, the short, the long term, everything. So the reporting, and my friend became Google. I had to find a lot of the concepts. I had to, there were no templates. I joined small organizations that have no WFM. I wasn't knowledge. I was hired to do it. And I did it 3 times, to in different places where there was no WFM. Mm. So, you learn as you go by, and everything, you start, learning a few tricks, and then you learn from older teams. Because when I was with Saks, we had a WFM offshore. So I had to oversee all of their, all their capabilities. They have to go through a lot of the processes and why we did it. And then we have to roll it to the floor. So it's finding ways to get operations interested in what we do enough to care, right? But you don't need to be 100% in it. Just understand what process and why the process is like this, and why we're doing it this way, and why am I only have 7 people now, but then the next interval you can go ahead and take 5 out of there. So it's just getting them enough information that they sort of understand why we're doing it.
You know what? That's the most difficult thing for me, at least from my career, was exactly teaching myself and getting to understand how to get them interested. And I have found out, speaking with so many planners out there and forecasters and stuff, that when they are in front of people like Jeremy in functions like his, they don't know how to communicate. And when, let's say, a Jeremy has a say, he's saying, no, I don't understand, I don't agree, we tend to shut up because it's a senior stakeholder I'm not supposed to confront. Then they know better, or I'm going to be fired, or I don't want to challenge them because that's bad for my position. So I always find it extremely interesting when I speak in very few organizations that have that kind of collaboration, when I see someone who is in a senior function that cares enough, as you put it, to understand why the heck are we doing it. It's not to harass people. It's not to make life difficult, to make it easier. But that's also why I'm often asked, what do we do? How do we make them care? So, Jeremy, I'm also interested from your position. If you're a new team member in your team, what should be my approach to get you to listen to me?
When we're thinking about the future, as Yunier kind of said, it's connecting like what's happening today to like the planning that we did previously, I think is a useful place. So if we don't have good plans, if we don't execute well on our plans, if we don't have a good process built around this function, it's probably going to be chaotic, right? We're always going to be understaffed, or we're always going to be overstaffed, or we're going to be violently fluctuating between overstaffed and understaffed, or we're going to have people from other parts of the organization, finance probably, that are telling us we're too expensive, but we have no solutions on how to continue to deliver for our customers, but at a lower cost. Like these are the things that people like I am facing. And so having the team to say like, I can help with this. We don't want to fluctuate between understaffed and overstaffed. And like, we can make a plan for that. It probably is useful to kind of start simple and not try to over explain and go too far into the weeds to a point where I'm not going to understand anymore. Like ultimately, like, what do I need to know? I mean, to your point, you're saying, maybe I tend to go a little bit deeper than some others do. And I agree. I think that's both a pro and a con of working with me, as I like to go really deep into certain things. But if I wasn't that type of person, like, all right, you've got my attention for so long. Make your point, get to your point quickly, and then back it up. Make sure that, you can kind of prove the point, make the point quickly. And then when you've got my attention on, here's a problem I know you need to solve, I have some ways that can help you. Like, oh, okay. Again, so if finance is coming to me and saying, hey, you're too expensive, but I'm concerned about, negative impacts to our customer, who are the people that can help me with you are, right? You have all of this data and all this information. You can understand like, oh, you know what? Actually, if we make one or two minor adjustments here, there's a cost savings potential, but we're not going to tank our service levels. So understand my problems, be engaged and inquisitive on how you can help solve my problems. Start simple, probably to make sure I can understand it. And if you get my attention, if you get the senior leader person's attention, and you prove that this is true, that we know how to solve these problems, they're going to keep them back.
I love these tips and this advice because that's definitely a trap that I have been falling early on in my career. Is I tend to go into a lot of detail to the point when I'm seeing the blank look and stare, and then it's like, okay, next. And then Junior, on the other side, I'm curious to understand that when you lose the attention of a senior manager, or they just overrule you doing sometimes not very adequate decision about something, maybe we're lacking the information or maybe we just failed to communicate our message to them. Then I have seen a lot of times where tending to take it personally to the point like, well, they never listened to you. What's the point of doing it? I'm just gonna go and present some bullshit. They're not gonna follow my advice anyway. I'm curious to understand, did that happen to you, or is there any advice how to not take it personally and understand that maybe we're lacking a lot of information about that are above our pay grade?
So, okay. So a lot of this will come with experience. We have access to a lot of information, right? Just like you mentioned, there are a lot of details out there. So it's mostly about knowing your audience. If you know you're going to be meeting with a high senior leader, right? You're probably joining a meeting where you're going to be 5-10 minutes to do a quick, overview, right? At least in my experience, that's been bigger audience. You represent WFM, but you got all these different operation managers sitting there who are not on your fan. So, your time it's limited. So it's mostly high level information that they are looking for. It's knowing which KPIs they're interested in that you want to talk about. If finance it's meeting, they're likely to care about what's the cost per contact or, related to that information. Am I growing? Am I losing? Is my attrition higher or less? So those are kind of operational touch points that you can quickly overview if you're, in that sector. If you're a smaller player, then you can sort of grab more details, right? Because your meeting, it's mostly about you. Where I met with, managers and below that, it's mostly just to showcase the future plan, and you bring a little bit more information because you're building, you have either an hour or half an hour, so you're building a little more to it, and you'll get most of their attention related to solve those plans. Personally, it's hard to take. Have there been scenarios where you lose people? Absolutely. I've been in meetings where everyone is talking over. They're not even talking about what I'm talking. They're just having sidebar conversations because they're not interested. So it's the learning for them. They thought, okay, what was I talking about when I lost people? See, because either am I oversharing information that no one cares about? And again, I think I told Jeremy this. In my previous organization, there was this BT. You're only having for 5 minutes, or you'll start looking at the phone. So we used to meet before we walk into that world. Okay, what do we want? What's important? Being a manager of operations, and I have a director of operations. The only doubt of was me, but it's like, okay, what do we want to approach? What's the approach? What's the game plan here, so that we get him on the storyline? Okay, everything's sort of related. So okay, now we're gonna talk about staffing, and then we're going to something else. So it was why I said you get it with experience, because in the beginning you're very excited. You want to, or I found a lot of good information, but it could be at the agent level, and no one really cares about the when you're hot. Just keep it simple sometimes. Know your numbers.
It's
Jeremy said, you know, show me the numbers. Sometimes we come up with theories, but if you don't show the numbers, it stays there. Sometimes you don't even share because, like, do you have anything right now? No, then come back.
So is it a good idea to then also ask in advance, okay, what is the information that you're interested in? Because again, talking with people, I know that a lot of them, and I actually had that example with one of my teams when they had
Good.
to present every week to the senior management
Really?
past planning. They were wanting to take sick leave. They were feeling nauseous,
Yeah,
having
that's
head,
smart.
because they were so scared because they were seeing the Jeremys out there at that scary audience that just don't want to listen to you, that they're going to challenge you and they're there to destroy your knowledge. But the fact is that, again, they're dealing with so much information that they can only grasp that much and they're only interested in that much. So, how about you guys? I want to hear from both of you. Jeremy, if I am to ask you, what is it that you want to hear on that meeting? Is it a good idea, or you think, quite frankly, that I'm inexperienced or stupid and that I should know better?
I think that if you're not sure, you should ask somebody.
Okay.
Now, whether or not it's the end audience or not, I think that's a question. Now, within our org, I think it's totally fine for anyone within our organization to ask me. And, I'm happy. I'd rather they ask and we can talk. But like, if I'm going to meet with our CFO, I'm not emailing him to say, hey, CFO, can you tell me what you want? Now, what I might do, though, is I might talk to one of my peers in finance and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Like, am I on the right track here? And she knows she can give me that advice. And so, like, I would just think about that. Think about how well you know the audience, how much distance maybe there is between you and them. I think it's a good idea to ask somebody until you really know the lay of the land and different people and how they react. Like, I would maybe start with like people within kind of your circle of kind of trust and that sort of thing to get some advice. I would not always recommend, though, again, like there's certain levels within the organization where you may not want to ask that question. You said something that I want to comment on as well, just in terms of like, we might get challenged. I will challenge. That doesn't mean you're wrong or stupid or I hate your idea or anything, but like, and Junior can attest to this. I challenge frequently, and I probably need to manage myself a little bit at times on that, so people don't feel like, oh, the senior director is steamrolling me. What I'll often do is I'll start to jump in on my challenge, stop myself and go, just because I'm saying it doesn't make it true. Just because I'm saying it doesn't mean we should do it. But here's my questions, and I'm going to throw a bunch of things at you, and you should probably be prepared. That's going to happen, at least from time to time, depending on your audience. But I think just the last point kind of on this part of the conversation is, for me, like, get to the point. When I was earlier in my career and I was more of like a subject matter expert on whatever the topic was, and I found something I felt was profound and interesting, maybe I send an email to my manager or my director or something like, and it would be like this 100-page thesis. And like, my point is buried somewhere in like, the 17th paragraph. And so one of my managers is like, look, I don't have time to read this email. Get to the point. Like it. And so for me, the first sentence or one of the first sentences should tell me, what do you want? What are you trying to tell me? Like, what is the point of this communication? And then if you feel like you need to support that, like you probably do, like, maybe you have a second paragraph or something like that, but like, get to the point, especially in email, perhaps in PowerPoints or that sort of thing as well. But like, get to your point. Don't bury it. In most cases, I would say don't build up to it. Like, what are you talking to me about? Let's get to the point. Let's stay on task. So yeah, that just in terms of kind of that attention, the amount of attention that you have from folks being finite. You need to kind of stay at a certain high level. Otherwise, I'm starting to mentally move on.
And I love that we're digging so deep into that because it is an issue with a lot of people, and especially something that I have noticed, and I'm reflecting back on my own behavior. And I'm curious about that. When you start challenge in a group setting where I don't know, I'm a planner, forecaster. I'm not a senior manager. I'm not a WFM manager. Sometimes I'm just someone dragged into the scope of this meeting. And you have operations managers, contact center managers, and everyone is a manager but me. What happens is your challenge can come, I wouldn't say aggressive, I would say direct. And as a personality, I'm always reflecting. So I had a lot of instances where I'm a little bit more introverted. I want to first think about what you're challenging me about, think about my arguments, and then come back to you. But that was seen as, oh, you're not ready and you're not prepared, then your information sucks. No, sometimes it's just the personality. And I'm a reflective person. I'm very data driven. Now I'm also very loudmouthed, but back at the time I was like, no, I need to go back and check whether you have a point actually and to come back and prove you why you don't have a point. But how do we manage that? Because it is a big issue, especially in WFM. A lot of us are introverted. Sorry.
I'll give you so a lot of it will fall on the manager, then on the person giving that presentation and getting that major work, right? So if I don't prefer you for the setting that I'm putting you in, it's all me, right? Because I should know this group already and sort of the information that they're looking for. And a lot of people are not accountable. It is something where if someone asks the question, they think they're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
What the case? Sometimes people don't know how to ask the question, but the question is still valid. And it's mostly to learn. People are go back to the curiosity, or they just want to know. And it's hard sometimes to separate the tone from the question, right? Because people hear the tone and they think, whoa, something shot. I've been in meetings where my senior manager put me in that setting, but we used to sit together. So, and we used to prepare and we used to talk about the numbers. So, and the question came, or if a question came from any other place, if she noticed that I took 2-3 seconds to start, she'll start. Right. So someone will pick it up. If I wasn't comfortable, or you start with, and someone will pick it up and say, this is what we're talking about. This is what we're doing, right? Because someone should be a little bit more prepared. And it's good learning experience. It's absolutely a great learning experience to be in those kind of settings, because you get to see the decision making of everyone in that room. WFM is a small piece of the entire operation, right? Someone has to execute it. And I've been in meetings where, we're talking about, a new process being introduced, and all I have to do is calculate how many people, where in the intervals do they want to test this. The entire operation was bigger, right? You feel great to be part of it. That's, even though it was a small part. But it humbles you to understand that sometimes that's what you do. That's it. And that your role is small and you do it right.
I love these tips and advice so much, guys, because again, and I'm constantly thinking, I think actually for me personally, my journey changed one time when I was pushed so hard and I was always silenced. Silent. And I was thinking that back at the time, oh my God, they think that I'm stupid or that my information is incorrect or they don't value WFM. And I was always on the receiving end, but I was keeping quiet because it's senior management. Who am I to challenge back and to open my mouth and speak? And at some point, I just lost it. I remember it very vividly how I just bursted out to my manager and I said this and this and this and this and this. And they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But in my head, oh my God, if I open my mouth, I'm going to be fired. They will think that I'm opposing the organization. No, okay. And that's the thing, everyone has their goals. Our goal is to secure the people to do a specific type of job for the customers. But that, as you, Junior, mentioned, it's a small part. There is so much more that's going on that we're not aware of, but we're also not thinking about it. Oh my God, Jeremy actually has this and this and this and this and this, and he needs to make sure to fit it in the best possible way. But if we don't speak up, then it's not important enough. If we speak up, then he will start listening. But there is one more thing that I'm curious about your point of view before we wrap up and I let you go, guys. What do we do in case we're misfortunate enough in our organization to have the WFM against operations, to have that kind of a constant conflict between team leads and WFM, and everyone is pulling in their own direction? And then we go and complain, and we often feel like, oh, well, we're constantly overruled, and they're talking about UNs and coaching and stuff, but nobody cares about the planning. And when I go and complain to my, I don't know, contact center manager, they're siding with the operations. So what to do then?
A couple things. So I hope nobody's going to be offended, but sometimes the way that WFM brings things to the table can be negative and can be perceived as judgmental. And so when we show up with, your people are always, they are never, why can't they, why aren't you? And like, you guys are smirking because you've seen it or you've done it. And I get it, by the way. Like I've seen that same stuff. When you're sitting in WFM, you're seeing all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
And it bugs you. And sometimes it's not right. And we want to address it and we feel like we can't. And like, there's reasons that it happens, but we need to be thoughtful. If we want to have good partners, we need to be good partners. And so that means, it's funny, actually, Junior and I just yesterday and today were working through something internally where something was brought forward, a decision was made, and it blew up in our face. And we stepped back, and it was one of these things where the WFM team saw something. It maybe wasn't right. Maybe the thing is not ideal. But at the end of the day, it really didn't matter. It actually was not that impactful. And we pursued it and it blew up in our face. And now something that wasn't a problem is a problem. So, one, be good partners. Don't be judgmental. Don't assume that all of the agents are bad and they're doing all of these bad things. Like, there's usually so much more that drives agent behavior than simply just trying to take advantage of the system. But based on where we sit and what we see, it can seem that way. So make sure we're showing up right. I think like the closer you can get to the agents and the leads and the supervisors and understand their world, the better partner you can be and the less judgmental you'll probably be in the way that you'll show up. So I'd say like start with yourself and focus on building those relationships and those bridges.
Yeah, I agree with, because I seen it, when I was in the real time. You're only watching, to be fair, you're all trained to look for bad, to correct, right? It's never, we're here to look for the good behavior because, you gotta, the majority of the agents are handling correctly. It's just you're looking for that bottom 10%. So a lot of this back and forth, whether can you have a meeting? Elaborate. Take your time to educate the person as to why there is a no. Oh, we're not closing here at this market. Sometimes just take those extra 10 seconds, help a lot. the real-time devs used to have a bad reputation because we study all the time. We used to have on the side, coaches and or supervisors used to write their link, they wanted a team meeting. So there was a less. So if you came early, do it first. Because we have availability, we used to, they could call and reach. That extra second it took for me to team lead and say, hey, we have availability, you're next here. Would you like the meeting now? That person walked to the desk to thank me for it. So I started to learn, I can mimic what's happening around me because you lose people real fast. And Jeremy mentioned the partnership. It has to be. See, because we're looking at numbers, we're judging people based, we only see numbers, and you hear this all the time about it. You guys only see us as numbers. We're putting numbers to you, right? And it's true because every report we run, everything we do, it's a number. So it's always that you're back in, so it would, get their point, right? If I come to you and say, hey, someone's hanging out on phones, or prove what? A report that says 1 and 0, then 1 yes, someone's disconnect. It doesn't feel like it, right? So you have to go there and so understand what's happening. I would say WFM has more to lose because the training is always to look for the pushback.
I can't say how much I love that feedback because I fully agree. And I have been in the position where, and often though, this is coming down from senior leadership, Jeremy. I'm looking to you, not specifically, but to your fellow senior leaders out there. They're saying you need to be making sure that they're doing this and this and this. But then has the negative connotation of basically micromanaging and stalking your people. And this never ends in a good way. And I think often it is misunderstood to monitor and collaborate versus to micromanage, right? And that this just doesn't work, especially in the long term. But I love that you're saying this about partnership because as much as I love WFM and my heart is in WFM, I think often we tend to be isolating ourselves and handing over to, well, these are your people, they are your job, you need to fix it. These are your problems, and I'm just here to observe and to tell you exactly everything that you're doing wrong. And it just creates that constant conflict because I'm thinking if I'm that person who needs to manage customers and team leads and performance and this, and then I'm having that team that's in behind the wall and it's telling me, like, no, you were wrong again. Well, we can't expect good things to happen. But thank you both so much for joining me for this episode. I want to ask you the open question of any last words of advice from either of the positions. How do we handle senior leadership and what do they want and how can we ease the process? How can we drive results?
When we prove it, our word starts to carry more weight. So prove it, do it, prove it, execute it. And the more times you do that, then the more I'm going to listen to you.
Ooh, good one. Okay. Did you hear?
I think WFM makes, because we work with numbers, we work with a lot of calculations, there is a lot of mistakes we'll have. My recommendation is don't be afraid to make mistakes and own to it. Learn from it, move on. It's easy to get, you can get a forecast wrong. And learn from it. What did I do wrong? We do this all the time, right? Where we do the forecast and then we analyze at the end and then, we apply the learnings to the future. So it's a constant relying that I don't have to be 100% right all the time. I could be wrong. It's this. You learn from every step. So, you learn to include the new things as well. So, operations will trust more when you're not afraid to make mistakes, and you can bring it out to their setting and tell them what they did wrong, and here's how we're correcting it. As long as it always flows in that direction, this is what we did, this is how we're fixing it, this was happening, this is what we're doing to correct it. So, because it's in operations the same way, right? They still have to correct the agent. So the way it's all one family, it's just that some of us are isolated looking at stereo strings all day.
This is amazing. And to add to this one, again, don't be afraid. We tend to be a lot of going after perfection in WFM. Such thing does not exist. I'm sorry to bring it up. And I find that the more brave you are making mistakes, but also taking ownership rather than finger pointing, because this is something that kind of happens. Like, well, we did wrong because someone from operations has gave us the wrong information. That's when it starts to do the domino effect. So just take ownership. Nobody is going to be like, well, they admitted that they are wrong, so suck them right now. So thank you both so much for this episode. It was a brilliant one, and what an amazing perspective. I truly enjoyed the threesome, and you're welcome
You should.
anytime of the show. Enjoy your day.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for joining us today. I'm your host, Irina Mateva, founder of Right WFM, where we believe that every business and its people are unique and deserve the right solution to their challenges. If you need support with workforce management, we're just a message away. Get in touch at irina@rightwfm.com or info@rightwfm.com. If you like the content and would like to support the show, please subscribe to WFM Unfiltered on your favorite podcast platform, leave a review, and follow me on LinkedIn. You can also show some love to our great sponsors. For more information about them, check out the episode notes. This is your place for real WFM, so to suggest guests or topics, get in touch at irina@rightwfm.com. See ya!